It's the 10th episode of Bandits Weekly presented by Smash Supplements. I'm Nathan Crosby. Thanks to everyone who listened to the Zach Bookman episode, and thanks to Bookman for coming on last week. That was a lot of fun catching up with the former defenseman. This week, we've got a great guest for you. It's Bandits skills coach Kevin Yellowaga. But before we get to that, let's talk about the busy week the Brooks Bandits had in the middle of November. The only Wednesday home game of the year was last week against the Canmore Eagles. Big shout out to our sponsor, JBS Canada, for being there that night and bringing some of their employees down. It was a lot of fun. The game itself, Bandits take care of business with the 7-1 win. Brendan Hollahan, who had 2 starts last week, nearly gets the team's 7th shutout. The Eagles score in the last 12 seconds. But other than that, a pretty dominant effort from the Brooks Bandits. Davide Patella had a goal. Mirko Budazzoni and Parker Lalonde continue to have an impressive month of November. Budazzoni, I think, should be in consideration for the AJHL Player of the Month for November. There's still 3 games to play for the Bandits in November, but he has been on fire as of late, and he had another big game that night. That was the only home game of the week, the win over Canmore. A rare Friday night off for the team. We were in the Santa Claus Parade in downtown Brooks on Thursday. That was nuts. I've never seen, in 7 years of being in those parades, I don't think I've ever seen it that busy. It's really nice out right now in Brooks. So kids were awesome that night. Players loved it. So thanks to everyone who organized that event and had us down. Then we went up north again on the weekend. Saturday night, the Brooks Bandits visited the Saints for the second time this year. We were there in late October. Lots of the Bandits thought that was one of the hardest games of the year. And Spruce kind of mystifying where they're at in the standings right now, given that it was a heck of a game and an effort from both the Bandits and the Saints on Saturday night. Logan Sawyer scores 69 seconds into the game. A great end-to-end rush, top shelf, 1-0 Brooks. The Saints, though, they kept tying that game up. Just when the Bandits got ahead, Spruce would tie. The Saints eventually take a 3-2 lead, but the Bandits wouldn't go away, and Nathan Free, 2 power play goals, doing what Nathan Free does best, and that's score goals, and he was big in that game to tie it up 3-3. Goes to overtime. The Bandits get an unsportsmanlike penalty and have to kill it off at the start of overtime. The PK was excellent in that Spruce game, 7 for 7, and then Luke Marshall scores the overtime winner at the Grant Fuhr. Breaks the hearts. Cool celebration from Marshall. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on the highlights. And congratulations to him. Biggest goal of his Bandit career, and the 4-3 overtime win over the Saints. But that was just a fantastic hockey game from a fan perspective. Love to see more of that. And I'm certainly, everything with this new schedule, at least we're getting more Brooks versus Spruce Grove matchups, because the 2 we've had this year have been awesome. And the Saints are coming here next weekend for back-to-back games, including the Teddy Bear game. So those will be some excellent hockey games in Brooks. Then Sunday afternoon, we went over to Drayton Valley for the second time this year. Completely different game, lots of penalties, and the Bandits offense went to work, going up 4-0 in the first period. We saw some Bandits history. Fastest goals ever in a game. Nick DeGraves scores the 3rd goal off the rush, top shelf shot. They line up for face-off at center ice. Off the draw, Sawyer intercepts a pass and scores on a breakaway. So they score 5 seconds apart. That's the fastest 2 goals in Brooks Bandits history. And in AJHL history, it is they tied the record, which was 5 seconds. It's been done 4 times in the AJHL, 5 seconds apart. The last time it happened was in 1998 in a Bonneville Camrose game. So no one on the Brooks Bandits were alive when that happened. Players, that is, and the Brooks Bandits didn't exist as a team until 2000. So it's been a long time in the AJHL since 2 goals were scored 5 seconds apart. So DeGraves, Sawyer, they have some history now with those goals. Bandits skate to the 10-3 win over the Drayton Valley Thunder on Sunday. Brooks remains perfect in November, 8-0, 8 straight wins for the Bandits through this month. So coming up, some big home games this weekend versus Lloyd and Bonneville. We'll talk about those later. Just want to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Smash Supplements, where you can get everything you need to power through your day and level up. Open Monday to Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, 10 to 4 in downtown Brooks. Our guest this week on Bandits Weekly is Bandits skills coach Kevin Yellowaga. Our guest on Bandits Weekly is Bandits skills coach Kevin Yellowaga. Quite the hockey career you've had, Wags. It's so much to dive into. But just first off, this season, such a talented group of players. What's it been like with this group this year, coaching them?
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. It's certainly all of our Brooks teams have been respectful and stuff, but this group is especially keen. And me being on in years, I never take any group for granted, and they always make it fun and interesting and challenging, and they always seem to rise up to what we're doing. They certainly so far to this point have been enjoying the sessions and are appreciative of what we're working on. There's a good energy always around it, and that's how the original concept came up. We wanted them to be free thinkers and enjoy during the grind of a season, have a chance to, yes, work on some things, but also just enjoy a little bit of a break from the regular grind, so to speak. Yeah.
And some of these players, these new players you get to work with, I think of guys like Logan Sawyer, Matthew Tyfair, and the other newcomers. What's it been like working with them?
There's always special talents, and yeah, like when I see kids that are rated in NHL drafts or already have scholarships, they're already pretty special kids when they get here sometimes. So it's just learning more about them and finding out their strengths and weaknesses and working with them to collaborate on certain things and to get a little more out of them, get them out of their comfort zone a little bit, even though they are so good. Give them a chance to just really try some unique things. But whenever we come here, there's always some special kids, and we've had special D, special forwards, and special goalies, and it challenges me. Like, that gets me excited to be here. That's a heck of a challenge, and I feel like I got to always rise up to that level.
And that's sometimes the question I get about, like, I see skills coach, and they ask me more like what it is that you're doing here, and that's a good way to describe it. It's kind of the breaking up the routine of just a regular practice every day. You try to offer something new.
Yes, so there's the free side of it, just being creative and giving them challenges and being really loose. And there are themes like how we might want to attack the net or shoot quicker off the pass or shoot in stride, or it could be multiple things. Picking up pucks, board play is a big theme that we work on, and those themes will creep into the games. But we're always there's also that ultra creative and loose side. Like, you can't really. It's not rote memorization. You can't really do anything wrong, and they usually add to it. Like when you see these elite players, and I'll use Jack Hughes as an example, an NHL player on New Jersey Devils. They're taking parts of moves and making new moves, and so like moves evolve from just when kids are free play and the ODR and stuff. So we definitely have that aspect, and there's definitely things that feed into the Bandits, but it's not. It's still there's a looseness to it, a good feel to it, and it gives them lots of touches of the pucks, and just let them work out some things. Work out some of their bad reps. They get to work some of them out to get feeling good again with me. So that's fun.
And the other fun thing about your practices too is all the equipment I see out on the ice, tires and the sticks and all those things you incorporate in, and plus music. How important are things like that make it unique?
For me, it is like the music is the tempo and the feel and the rhythm, and I think the whole game of hockey is a dance and being on single legs. So music's the whole feel. There's certain skills coaches that would say you don't really need all the obstacles and things like that, but I find that through the obstacles, there's a lot of planning out. You're planning out where your next move is, where you're going to place a puck. So the obstacles are for that, not for me to look like I'm putting on a bigger show, but they're just that. They're planning out their puck placement, how you would plan against an opponent. Before, we used to just use cones, and so cones aren't really, when you have a stick to measure that by, you got to plan out your move a certain distance away from them. So I find the obstacles are helpful that way too.
So your history with hockey, going back to your playing days. So first off, where you're from, where you grew up, and how you got into hockey, which led to your junior career.
Yeah, the base of it goes back to Medicine Hat, and I I grew up in the Hat close to Trevor Linden, and he's just a year younger than me. So growing up in the Hat, I have really fond memories right from 6 years old in minor hockey there. And Medicine Hat at the time, not unlike now, like they just didn't have enough players for a AAA Bantam team. That got me to Lethbridge, and I lived next door to my hockey coach for a year there, and I was protected by the Lethbridge Broncos already at 14. They didn't have a Bantam draft. So, I knew, and you knew about college then, but it was so much more heavily dominated by the Western Hockey League. So when Brandon Wheat Kings finally protected me, that was pretty exciting. I did get to play in the AJHL and SJHL at 16, which I knew there was guys on my team getting this noise about scholarships, and that seemed pretty exciting too. But once I got my first game of the WHL in, I was pretty excited in Brandon, and that was also at 16 years old, and I was lucky enough to get a goal, and it was very memorable. So my parents drove from Medicine Hat from Lethbridge to Bow Island so they could listen to that game on the radio. And they heard me score, and they were jumping up and down in the car, and then the police came and asked what they were doing, and they just had to explain that their son was just scored a goal. But anyway, and the Western Hockey League was great, and I ended up playing in Moose Jaw for a year on Fleury's line, and then that followed up into Saskatoon Blades and got to play in a Memorial Cup at 19 years old. Yeah. So those were exciting times for me.
Stops in Yorkton in the SJ, Fort Saskatchewan in the AJ, and then, as you said, in the Western League, Brandon, Moose Jaw, Saskatoon. I mean, that Memorial Cup in '89. So you hit a post in overtime. Is that the story?
And my friends, it's not just a story. My friends let me know too, because it's on video. So they remember it well. And Kruger, Trevor Kruger was the goalie, and a good friend of mine, Bob Wilkie's, still in Calgary. So I see them, and they remind me of that once in a while. And then
just rip off the Band-Aid.
Then Swift Current came down during overtime and scored while I was on the ice as well. So they let me know that too. But it was unbelievable. Like, we got to go for warm, and it was those games were the only ones that got on national television. So that was a big deal. And you got to do warm up without your helmets. So you thought you had made it big playing in a game like that. So
just like Bedard.
Yeah.
Fastest goal. WHL history to start a second period, 5 seconds in. You scored a goal in your career. Was the game in Medicine Hat or against the Tigers when you scored this goal?
In Saskatoon and against the Tigers.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was to start the third period, not the second period. But a good friend of mine, Mark Wolf, was lined up on the wing against me, and he didn't check me too hard. And when the Tigers won the draw, I went right between both D. It wasn't unlike the Sawyer goal, and that's what got us talking about it. The Bandits scored one like that just the other day. So I always think when you go the whole way like Sawyer did and like I did, and you deked, if you would have just shot it a little sooner, you could have maybe did it in 4 seconds,
Yeah, I mean, it was great because the Bandits game on Sunday in Drayton Valley, that those goals happened 5 seconds apart. I say on the broadcast, that's got to be a record, and you were right on it. So thank you for helping me out there.
No, that's neat.
And when you saw Sawyer get that opportunity, did you think, were you watching it live, and what was your reaction?
I was listening. I had to watch it back because it happened so fast after the first goal, because I took my eye away for a second because I was planning, and I had the game on, and then I had to watch it back again, and then I go, oh man, that's unbelievable. Like, I couldn't even believe how fast it happened after. Yeah.
So after your junior career, you go to the University of Lethbridge and have a very successful career with the Pronghorns. Just tell us about some of your favorite memories playing at the U of L.
I just think university in general was good for me because a big part of the Western Hockey League was intimidation and fighting. I played against Berube, Manson, Baumgartner, Ty Domi. It's intimidating, and I was more brought up to be a skater and use my speed and stuff. So the university game at that point had no red line. It was a speed game. You practice 5 days to try and beat U of A's systems. I enjoyed my coaching. I enjoyed the school. Just everything about it. It wasn't about fighting. It was about playing. And I finally calmed down, learned to calm down, and had a lot more development in me. And like most people, you always are in a rush, these kids growing up, to be the best at 18, and really you're kind of at your full potential at 23. So even though I wasn't a superstar and I didn't make the NHL, I was playing my best hockey at 23, maybe could have played some minor pro and stuff like that, and eventually got to Europe. But university hockey was just thinking game, strategy game, and a speed game, and it seemed to fit. And the speed for me, I learned to calm down a bit. I was just so hyper in junior. So when I see some of these kids that we get to work with that are just fast all the time, I have a lot of empathy for them, and I want to help teach them just to hold your horses a little bit and change gears, and it's easier said than done. Yeah.
Then you mentioned Europe, going over to Holland to play there.
Yeah.
Must have been an incredible experience there.
Something I'd never get to do if it wasn't for hockey and wasn't for connections and network and people that you meet along the way, I guess, and having an agent. And in my university course, we did a goal setting and all that, and I really wanted to just to finish to say that I got to play some pro hockey and get paid to play. And no different than the Montreal Forum, the owners sat right behind our bench, and I honestly felt if I didn't score every game that you might not get a plane ticket to go back home. Like, you just don't know, like, because you just take your chances. And as it worked out, if you scored the first goal of the game, I've never told you this story. A lady at the bakery said, at the Dutch bakery said, if you score the first goal of the game, the eerste goal of the game, we'll get you a free donut anytime. I scored the next 9 first goals of the game. So I was always wanted to get on the board early.
And you got your 9
and I
free
got
donuts?
my donut. Yeah.
You told me just before that playing pro hockey was important to you, just the meaning behind that with your dad.
Oh man, he was, there's kids that, they'll sometimes say, geez, your dad was too involved with you, and he was always there. And I have friends in Lethbridge that say, I wish I had a dad like yours that was at all my games and stuff. So I never took it for granted, or maybe I did in university, because I remember saying to him, Dad, you don't have to come watch me play anymore. And he said, I love watching you play. And you never know how much time you have with somebody. So he was 53 years old, and he had a brain aneurysm, and shortly after that, I was even coaching a spring team then, and then I got the call to go to Europe right after that. So it had just double meanings. I'd finished my student teaching round. Those kids knew I was going to Europe. Just a lot of meaning, and to show my dad. I got so excited when I scored there. It was like, I think every goal just meant a little bit more. Yeah.
I love the story of your parents driving to Bow Island to listen to the game. As
it's
someone
funny
who
what they
broadcasts
do.
game, it's something that I always try to remind myself that it's important, because there's so much invested in these players from a family perspective.
100%. All those families that listen to games, I think about that too. I think about the parents that travel, the games on the radio. Like, I've left this rink and I listen, the game takes me all the way back home, But yeah, for parents, there's nothing better, nothing better than seeing their kid. Like, they love that. It's a big sense of pride.
Your relationship then with Ryan and the Bandits, how did that all start?
Yeah, Ryan, I didn't know too much about him other than the 1 year I started coaching. Came back from Europe, was a school teacher at that point, and I was driving in from Pincher Creek to help my friend with the midget AAA team. Ryan Papuano is a keen, excellent coach, and he either had the midget 15 team, I think they called it Elite 15 back then. My nephew played on that team as well, but Ryan he was a student of the game back then. He was young to it, and he would watch the practices and take what he could, I'm sure, and he just took from everybody, I'm sure, in his learning curve. But he would have known of me there, and I certainly would have known of him. And then I think the next step, kind of, because he knew I was working with so many kids, he's got me into scouting. And then one summer I was working with some of the Bandits players doing my skills stuff. And they mentioned to Ryan, they brought it to him and said, geez, we've really enjoyed these sessions. We're learning a lot, like more than I've ever learned in terms of skills and good things that I can bring to the rink. And they suggested to Ryan, like, maybe we could do a full-time skills guy. And Ryan, of course, just took it to another level and really slotted each session in to help the kids in the best way they can, to based on their schedule. Yeah.
You look at some of the great players we've had. You worked with Kale. The list goes on. When you watch them now in their post-Bandit career, whether it's at college or the pro level, you see those things that maybe that they would have learned here. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think any coach is proud to see the kids move on to the next level. Like, you just always want to promote your kids, whether it's from the bantam team to the midget team, the midget team to the AJHL, and the AJHL to college, or if they're lucky enough to have a pro career. But yeah, I mean, in Brooks, we've been lucky to have so many go on to college, and I would say even more, for me, more than the NHL, to see a kid go on and get all his schooling paid for and what that means, and the commitment and sacrifice to get there, and their further development that they get when they're there. I'm just proud to like be a small part of it, really. Like they always will have little takeaways, or maybe I was able to put something in their mind for the short time that they're here. But like I say, I never take for granted. They come in here pretty talented kids for sure. So you're just happy for them to see them move on. Any kid, doesn't matter who it is. And man, we've had some. And I maybe the coolest thing is, like, yeah, I've been lucky enough to see Cale after an NHL game and get to talk to him, and wow, that's incredible. And I've got to go to a game in Vermont and talk to Lodermeyer, the captain, after, and Nate's got to go in the dressing room of Vermont, and Nick Hamry was there. He's a real estate guy now. So, you make a trip to go there and to actually see what does this really look like, and you just go, wow, you guys have made it. I'm so happy for you.
And all have different levels of success. That's pretty cool to see.
Like Hamry's doing great in real estate. Like, I mean, that's at the end of the day that they go on to life too, and it's awesome.
One last one, you mentioned Nate there. We got to talk about Nate a little. Just how proud of him are you, and just seeing him grow up here and become the player he's becoming.
Yeah, it's a journey for sure. Like, I mean, I've worked with every age group of kids, and then when you have your own, it's always it's exciting. But I'll continue working with different kids. Nate's just on that journey right now, and certainly at 14 there was different pressures that I never really knew. Like, I never thought the Bantam draft would be such a big pressure. There's college schools, there's agents, there's always going to be noise, I found. And I found that the kids that can just focus on where their feet are and have a good mindset seem to do the best. And at the end of the day, no matter how much noise there is, they all got to keep working on their game and keep getting better. So, Nate's certainly showing some signs, and I'm excited for what he still has to come. So that'll be the neat thing. But he's in Medicine Hat and he's close to Brooks, so he certainly enjoys that.
Well, we enjoyed catching up with you, Wags, as always. Just thanks for doing this. It was awesome to get to know you a little bit more, and I hope fans, really take time to appreciate just all the work you put into the team as well. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. I loved it. Thank you.
So that's skills coach Kevin Yellowaga. Big thanks to Bandits skills coach Kevin Yellowaga for joining us this week on Bandits Weekly. Wags told me something that I wish I would have brought this up in the interview, but apparently when he played in Yorkton in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, he was roommates with Bandits head scout Wayne Labrie. So maybe we'll have Wags or Labrie on a future episode and we can get some stories about that. I'm dying to hear them. So look ahead for the Bandits this week. Nothing for the weekdays until Friday, when they host the Lloydminster Bobcats and then the Bonnyville Pontiacs on Saturday. Lloyd's been playing some good hockey here in the month of November. They've got two guys in the top 10 of scoring with Dalton McGilvery and Caden Cabana. So don't sleep on this Bobcats team. I know the last time they were here, the Bandits handled them with the 8-0 win, but I'm expecting a good test Friday night for the Bandits, who will be in their black jerseys for that game. Then Saturday night, the Bonnyville Pontiacs come to town. It's a revenge game for the Bandits. The only other time they faced Bonnyville was up at the RJ in middle of October. Bandits dropped that game, just their second loss of the season at the time. So we'll get to see this Bonnyville team, who are now challenging Calgary for fourth place overall in the AJHL. So this is a good weekend of home games and tests for the Brooks Bandits, with Lloyd Friday, Bonnyville Saturday. Both games are at 7 o'clock. Once again, big congratulations. I know we mentioned this last week, but big congratulations to Kalen Fitzpatrick committing to Clarkson University. Congratulations to Aiden Fink, who scored his first hat-trick, in college hockey hat-trick last weekend for Penn State, and he received Big Ten honors this week for his performance. So congratulations to Fink. Don't forget the Brooks Bandits will be playing the Calgary Canucks next Wednesday on Siksika Nation. First ever regular season game there, so will be a special night for sure. Also, Bandits Teddy Bear Toss game is coming up December 2nd against the Spruce Grove Saints. And the Brooks Bandits will be out and about next Monday selling cash raffle tickets throughout Brooks. So you're going to want to wait for them. You want to meet the Bandits, get some pictures, buy some cash raffle tickets. The early bird draw is coming up here in mid-December. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Bandits Weekly. We got Louie here from the city of Brooks. Did you want to say hi to the folks? No? You're not. You're usually. You're not this shy usually. Can we get a shot of Louie?
Hello.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Smash Supplements and Kevin Yellowaga. I'm Nathan Crosby. This has been Bandits Weekly.